Welcome, everyone. We are live. And it's Monday. OMG, it is Monday. I'm trusting that all of you were productive and that you had a good time. But most importantly, I'm trusting that you observed. I needed help putting up a gazebo, a camping gazebo. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just didn't. And I sat in my car and I said, I really need my neighbor today. And out of my periphery, because I was going to text him, out of my periphery, I see my neighbor. And I jump out of the car because it was just parked. And I said, oh my God, I was totally just thinking to text you. And we started talking. He goes, yeah, the kids have a birthday party, but I'll stop by when I come back. And I was like, cool beans. And it's funny how he was talking to me about something. And now he makes wine. He's Italian, right? And I was like, dude, let me ask some questions. And so now the gears in his head are turning to make his wine in these small batches, just, you know? And he's like, I never would have done that. He's like, I never thought to do that. I said, I know. It's okay. And so when he came back over to help me put the tent up, he says, my wife totally loves the idea. And she says, thanks. And she's going to explore it more. And I said, good. You got to do something with that, because he does make great wine. So you see, some people always ask, well, how do you get instant manifestations? And I keep telling you, it has nothing to do with things that are far-fetched. It happens as a result of you living and interacting with other people. You're going about your day and you're just living. And it's funny because they were looking for a solution to their problem. That's what they were doing. They're like, we don't know what to do. We both make great money, but then we have nothing left. And I'm like, and we're working so hard. There has to be a better way. That's what he was saying to me. And now they have this other idea that they can explore. So manifestation is always happening. But in order for you to notice, you have to live. You understand? And it was just a natural conversation. But again, we keep looking for these things that are so outrageous. We're always living. And then why do I call it Lifeline this morning? Because my other neighbor, when I got back and I was waiting for the first neighbor, I was throwing stuff away in the alley in the bins. And he says, how you doing? How's your chicken? And I was like, oh, great. I said, do you have some time today? Can you give me a hand? And he was like, well, certainly. And he came over. And by the time the first neighbor got there, they were just going to fortify it, like put the pegs in and get it all done. So we all ended up having a great conversation. And the reason why I'm telling you these things is because I needed something done. Because truthfully, I had no idea how I was going to do it. It wasn't something that I could have done on my own because I'd never done it before. I don't know how to put no gazebo. I don't know camping. But they came along and they were a lifeline. And they were a lifeline because that is what was required in that moment. And I had the courage to ask for assistance. You see how it works? We live, and there are things that we require. And as we are living, solutions begin to show themselves. But solutions are hidden sometimes when we bemoan our situation. When we say, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know. See, nothing ever works out for me. Why do I always have to struggle? See, those kinds of questions, those kinds of attitudes, they blind the eye, and you don't see the solution. And it's funny because I now have a project out of this meeting. I have 5 books I have to record. Yesterday brought me number 6 from another neighbor. So it is, it is, I don't even know where I'm going to find the time to record all of these books right now. But what I am saying to you is solutions always present themselves if you are open, and you don't know where they're going to come from because you're just busy living. Do you understand it? You're just busy living. And then if you are paying attention as you live, you say, oh, wait, that's a harvest. Oh, and that's another harvest. You see, we don't ever have to fret and worry and panic. Just live. And you will encounter people and places. Oh, indeed you shall. I have many announcements coming down the line that came out of these things yesterday, but I can't speak on them just yet. I can only tell you the other parts, but I can't tell you this one just yet. Now is not the time. But what I'm saying to you is a lifeline. What do you do with a lifeline? It's a lifeline. There used to be a game show. I forget the name of the game show, but they said, do you want to call a friend? Do you have a lifeline? Now, here's the thing. The lifeline wasn't given to me by an external force. The lifeline is something that I had put there because I asked the question, who can help me with this today? Who's going to help me today? That was the question. Because I didn't have time. I just wanted to get the chickens in the yard. That was my only focus, was to have lady out there in the yard scratching and teaching popcorn how to do things. And of course, my man, a little bit, my main man, because he loves to bathe in the sun, you know? That was my only focus, was being out there with them. And I knew they were going to enjoy frolicking. I knew it. And that was what drove me to act. School only account, thank you for being here. Thank you. Hopefully I'll see you again. School only account, yeah. But anywho, we live always from the end. We always live from the end. What's that mean? It means you know what you want, and because you know what you want, everything unfolds from there. Everything unfolds from that place of knowing. So you see, you're the one creating the lifeline within your own life. Nobody else can do it for you because they don't know. They didn't know they were needed yesterday, but they came over and we had a hoot. It was the most awesome time ever. Man, I have never laughed so hard in my life. But you see, that lifeline was created by me. So where in your life are you creating these lifelines? And perhaps you would say, but Angela, I ain't got no neighbors like that. I'm not asking you to have neighbors like that. I'm saying to you, where in your life, where do you go? Do you know what I'm saying? Where do you go? What kinds of things do you do? Then that is where you will encounter the materialization of your lifeline. Your life is your experience. So it can't be like mine. Mine can't be like yours. So it's not a matter of, I don't live in that kind of neighborhood that I know my neighbors. No, it doesn't have to be like that for you. But you do have to know what you want. That's where our similarities come in. What do you want to become? Listen, I just wanted to sit in that yard and watch them frolic. Because they're always in the house, especially in the winter, they're always in the house. Always. And yesterday was the first day we broke 20 degrees Celsius. What? Let me tell you something, Linda. I knew what I wanted. Oh, yes, I did. Oh, yes. I knew what I wanted. And that's what drove me. So the similarities in our experiences are these. You must know what you want to become. I just wanted to be carefree in that yard. And a little bit didn't crow. Oh, no, he didn't. He didn't need to. Right? And I knew. I just wanted to be carefree. And I knew how that was going to feel to me. So you see, naturally, we always know what we want. But where we struggle is how. You don't have to figure out how. How is contingent upon what you want. It doesn't have a choice. The moment you make the decision, the how is going to be there. But if you focus on the how not being there because you cannot see it yet, you block it. Because now you've changed the outcome. Instead of carefree, what have you done? You've created now panic, fretting and worrying. So now a different experience has to unfold for you. But if your focus is just to have a good time, you know, watch the chickens frolic. If that's your purpose, well, then the how is going to show itself because that's where you are. But if your focus has now become fretting and worry and whatever else you can throw in the mix, well, you're going to encounter people and things that exacerbate that experience. Make it bigger, worse then. Just make it bigger. So if the fretting and the worry is there, to exacerbate that would be to make the worries when they come up and you experience them. Oh my God, how did this escalate so quickly? How's this happening? Yeah. And it all hinges upon you and what you want to experience. So how do you now use the principle of correspondence to change your life and apply it? As above, so below, as within, so without. That is the principle of correspondence. So how do you use that in your life for your present moment, your present situation? Step one, know what you want to become. You know what you want to experience. Always the first step. The second step that naturally occurs is experience in imagination what you would be doing in reality if you did part one, if you did step one. So how did I do it? For step 2, naturally. Listen, I knew I was gonna have a hard time bringing out Lady and popcorn, 'cause you can't separate them for a long period of time. And I know this because as I had her in my arms, she fought and she struggled and she cried. But I put her in the gazebo and I zipped it up real quick and I ran back in the house and I had to wrangle popcorn. And what was he doing? And he was just freaking out. I said, baby, relax. I'm taking you to mama right now. I knew that was going to happen because that is the nature of the separation of mother and baby. So I was prepared for that. I knew it was going to happen. And so when I finally wrangled him, listen, it was only like 15 seconds, if that. And as soon as I got them together again, she let me know that she was displeased. She let me know. But they were together again, right? So I knew what to anticipate because that is the nature of separating mother and baby. But when I was bringing them back in the house, I said, we go and experiment. So I tucked her under my armpit and I had popcorn right in her face in the other hand. So nobody could tell me and holler at me. I didn't like doing it because I was scared because he's so tiny, right? But I knew what to anticipate just because of the nature of what I was dealing with. But in that step 2, I experienced in my imagination what I would be doing if I had them all out in the yard. And I was sipping on something cold. Yeah, because it was hot enough for me to do so. And I was just watching them scratch, and that brought me the greatest joy. That is what I experienced in my imagination. Because that's what I wanted. And step 3 naturally occurred. It made me feel so good to know that they were going to be outside and bathe in the dirt and the sunshine. And so naturally, then I saw my neighbor, and then I saw my other neighbor. And listen, my neighbor was bumping the tunes. Because when I said to him, hey, can you help me? Because I know his name. I don't know what to call his name now. And he says, I thought you were going to call me and tell me, your music is too loud. I said, I'm in here dancing. What you mean your music is too loud? I said, you better play. And so it's just one of those things. He was anticipating me complaining because that's what he's used to from neighbors. Well, he goes, I sure appreciate you. I said, listen, I'm here to have a good time. Right? So now he'll be a little bit less on edge when it comes to neighbors. Because I wasn't complaining about me. And listen, he was playing Biggie. Ow. I don't normally listen to rap music, but he was playing Biggie. And you know that when that beat dropped, your girl was, well, dropping it like it was hot. So this is how you apply those principles in your life on a daily basis. You must know what you want. You must know what you want to experience or become. Always. And naturally, when you name it and claim it, you're going to see something. You're going to get a feeling in your mind's eye. Naturally. And then part 3, you just immerse yourself in how good that thing feels. And within moments, they were both there to assist. I just put the call out. I put the call out mentally long before I put it out physically. I didn't know he was going to be in the backyard, and I didn't know the other neighbor was going to walk along on the sidewalk. I had no idea. I just knew I had errands to run. And he just, quote unquote, coincidentally happened to walk by as I was sitting in the car. And the other one just happened to be out in the alley while I was throwing out recycling. There are no coincidences. So if you, step one, know what you want to experience or to become, naturally you will experience in imagination what you would be doing in reality. And it's going to make you feel a particular way, and that feeling is what will drive you to act. And when you act, the first thing you will say is, oh my God, how was that so easy? Because that's what my neighbor said. He goes, we had that thing up in like 15 minutes. I said 20, but it's all good, right? He said, I just need you to hold this part while I do these other things. He says, you're strong. And then the other one showed up and they took over. So you see, this is how life works, naturally and with ease. And it is all based upon you. So if you think your kids are giving you a hard time, I ain't calling no names, but I know one right now. Oh, but mother, I don't want to. Hmm. If that's what you're dealing with, because you know these kids just won't, and they don't want to listen sometimes, and ooh, they don't even want to put away the dishes sometimes. Ooh. But apply the principles. Because I said, and it was funny how I said to myself, I should not have to coerce this young whippersnapper to help me. He should be able to see what needs to be done because he's not blind, and do it. And he says, Mom, how do I get popcorn to come to me? I said, why don't you have some mealworms in your hands? He goes, but I want him to just come to me. I don't want to coerce him. And our eyes made four. Well, 8 in this case, because he wears glasses and I wear glasses. And he just looked at me. And he blinked, and he didn't say nothing else after that. He says, well, I guess that takes time, right, Mom? I love it when the light goes on. And let me tell you, I am so used to hollering sometimes. So don't think that I got my life together. Because I'm used to hollering. Why I gotta tell you the same thing so many times? But then I catch myself and I say, wait, you know the principles. You know, you better start applying the principles when it comes to this whippersnapper. What do you want him to do? I just want him to look and see what needs to be done and to do it without me having to just holler all the time. I don't have the strength and the energy to keep hollering. That's not how I want my day to be. And I begin to experience in imagination what I'd be doing in reality. And what would I be doing? Because I know the first thing I would say is this invasion of the body snatchers? Because I didn't have to ask you to do nothing. What'd you do with my boy? That's exactly what I would do because that is what I've always done. When he would surprise me, I'm like, is this invasion of the body snatchers? That is what I would naturally do. Naturally. But yesterday he came to an understanding for himself. He says, Mom, I don't want to coerce Popcorn to come and hang out with me. I just want him to. And that was the same thing I said to myself. I don't need to coerce him and bribe him to do things. I just want him to. So you see how we mirror things back in our own lives? So I'm just reminding you on this glorious day that this is how life naturally unfolds. So you got a back problem? You got a foot problem? You got hypertension? Apply the principles. What do you want to experience? You want to experience health. What would you be doing if you didn't have back problems, if you didn't have a foot problem, if you didn't have hypertension, what would you be doing? You know it better than I do because I don't live your life, but you know what you'd be doing. You know what you'd be doing. So if you know what you'd be doing, how does it make you feel to know that you'd be doing that thing? And that's where you give your time over to. That's where you give your thoughts over to that thing and that scenario and the best outcome. Now, some things take more time. Every vision has its appointed hour. Your health, depending upon how long you've had this bad boy, that issue. Why? Because rhythm compensates. So if you've been struggling, now don't get discouraged. Hear me out. You've been struggling for 10 years. It does not mean you're going to have to struggle again for health for 10 years. That's not what it means. But I'm giving you that information to tell you, you may have been struggling for 10 years with a health problem. But if you apply the principle of correspondence, as within, so without, as above, so below, and you start to see in your mind's eye and in your life what you would be doing if you didn't have that health problem, instead of, "Ooh, girl, this problem I got been whooping my ass. It's just been beating me down." You see that? Naturally, you've been doing that because the health problem, the what? The health problem is what you've been dealing with. But now when you start to deal with the health solution, your conversations in your mind's eye are going to have to change. You don't have to force them to change. They will change naturally. And it feels like it takes a long time. But if you can use your imaginative faculties to comprehend what I'm about to say to you, when we have a situation, at first it is invisible, it is imaginary. Okay? And on the other side, we have what we want to become or what we want to experience. And between those two things is a giant chasm, like the Grand Canyon. You can't cross it just yet. Okay? But every time you entertain, this is what's happening in your brain, to bridge the chasm between the imaginary and the material. Every time you complain or every time you give thanks or imagine the best case scenario, you are building a bridge between the thing you want to experience and the thing that you would do that implies you are experiencing it. So with every complaint, you build a bridge between the imaginary thing you are complaining about and the physical thing that matches it. That is what you are doing psychologically in your brain. Not only just psychologically, but physiologically. What? Meaning what? You are building a neurological pathway in your brain. That is what you are doing. How do you know this? When you were learning how to write, what did you have to do? First of all, you saw it in your mind's eye. But then you know how we get, "Oh my God, I'm so scared. I don't know. It's going to be so messy." Because we're kids, right? And we're learning how to write. Shoot, you were learning how to write as an adult too, for some of us. And so every day that you practiced your printing and your writing, you went from imaginary, because at first you could not see yourself doing it physically. On the page, it looked horrendous to you. But the more you practiced, this neurological pathway began to set down in your brain between imaginary and holding pen or pencil and paper. So much so was your practice and your rehearsal of writing that the neurological pathway bridged the chasm between not knowing and doing. We do it all the time. You had to learn how to be a paralegal. You had to learn how to be someone who sells insurance. You had to go from the imaginary to the material. But to get there, you had to persistently practice the thing you wanted to do. And the only place that practice begins is mentally. Imagination, right in there, is where it begins. So when you hear to persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, that is exactly what you're doing when you rehearse in imagination what you would be doing in reality if you were the man or the woman you wanted to be. That's what you're doing on a daily basis. So every time you complain, every time you see the best case scenario, every time you practice, you are taking the invisible and making it material. Every single day. If you're working on a business plan, the same principle applies. You start out with an idea that nobody knows about, that nobody sees. But through your persistence, you take it from imaginary to material. So somewhere in there, you're going to have to put the work in. But the work now does not become a chore. Why? Because it is the love of putting that business together that drives you and keeps you practicing, keeps you whittling down this business plan until, and you're like, well, damn, it's done. So always know what is happening as you do it, because that is what keeps you faithful to the end. And that is meant in two ways. You are faithful to the end, meaning until it is done. And the other way is you are faithful to the end because that is what you can see in your mind's eye. And because you are faithful to that image, the end, it will materialize for you. So whether it is something material that you want, house, the same principle applies. You know what type of house you want, what kind of neighborhood you want to be in. You got to figure that part out for yourself because you need to know what kind of neighborhood you want to raise your kids in. You want to know, do I want to plant a kitchen garden? You have to know that information because it is in the whittling down of that information that you begin to get excited. And when you get excited, you put the first step down of building the chasm between tenant and homeowner. That's what you're doing. And then all of these things begin to unfold. You'll begin to hear about a program that you can use. You hear about this, you hear about that, and you say, oh my God, these things are just falling into my lap. No, they're not falling into your lap. You're seeing them because that is where you are focused upon. So I think I have made it clear. And if it is not clear, well, you can slide into my DMs and we can talk about it and I'll make it more clear for you if you want to get more specific about your business. But like I tell you, you don't have to tell me your business. You have to know your business for yourself. But the application, why did I choose the correspondence this morning? It doesn't matter which of the 7 you choose: mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, causation, and gender. It doesn't matter which one you choose. You're doing all of them at the same time. Because for correspondence, you need to know what it is you want to become, which is mentalism. And then, how does it feel? Vibration, how does it feel? Because now you're going to start to move from where you are with not knowing and not yet being. You're going to move from there through every stage because you're building the bridge over the chasm to where the end result is, and that is polarity, which will then show you the rhythm, the pattern, how these things unfold, which will cause you to do something that brings about an effect. Why? Because you generated, which is masculine, or on gender now, you generated the idea. You see? You came up with the idea. So to come up with the idea is masculine. But then when you begin to put it into form, well, that's the feminine side. So don't think that men can only be masculine. No, masculine is not male. Masculine is the invisible attribute. Feminine is the invisible attribute, meaning to mentally impregnate yourself with the image of what you want to become. Well, that's the place where it starts, mentally. And so then the way you begin to feel is the thrust. Hello? When you begin to feel a particular way about what it is you want to become, that is the movement, that is the swing of the pendulum of polarity and rhythm. It is the swing, the forward and the backward motion. And so this is why when you hear that rhythm compensates, however far you go to the left is however far you're going to have to come back to the right. So everything is going to be predictable. And in that predictability, you are comforted because you know. You see, nothing is ever unknown. It isn't unknown. You just don't know it at the time. But if you apply the principles, you know it can only unfold in that manner because of the manner of seed that was planted. Plant corn, can't get carrots, my friends. So that's why mentalism is the seed. What have you planted? And you see how you go through all the steps? I'm just making you aware of what you're doing because that is the nature of creation itself. And you and I always do it because we cannot break principle. Ever. And that should tell you that you're always going to be successful. Whether you choose good, bad, or indifferent, my friends, you will be successful at it. Anyway, let me welcome everybody, and then we're going to go. We're going to play the chime, and maybe you'll get chicken. Maybe Little Bit's going to holler for us this morning. Listen, we heard the birds outside. And he was excited because he heard the birds. And I said to him, baby, ain't nobody got a more beautiful song than you. Nobody. Because those other birds are seasonal. In some instances, they are. The geese, seasonal. They go down south, but they're on their way back now because it's spring. But the rooster, nah, his song is ever constant. It does not change. Every sunrise, he will sing his song to let you know that we are alive. That's what he will do. He doesn't care about what anybody else thinks or what the weather is. He does what he does because that is his job, to wake up the world. And let me tell you, you get close enough to him, every cell in your body will wake up when he sings because he is loud and proud about it. But hello, Melly Mel. And I know that school-only account had to go, but I said hey to him earlier. And Hatna was also here. But for the others on YouTube and Facebook and TikTok that have not made themselves known, I see you. I sure do. And Saps is here on Twitter. Ow. Hey, Saps. It is always a pleasure to see you, dearie. Always. Always. Fanbase. Ooh. Fanbase is bumping this morning. Hello. We got Jared. We got Surreal. Miss McQueen. Amen. Is this, let me see. Paradise One, welcome to the space. Hey, Michael. Oh, and the beautiful KZ, Yamila, is in the house. Miss Cherry. Oh, Miss Cherry. It's been a while. It's been a while. Sarah, listen, you got to show up more often so I say your name the right way. Sarah. You know, but I see all of you. Thank you all for being here this beautiful Monday. And listen, I trust that whatever situation you are dealing with, so long as, look, even if you don't know exactly what it is to put a name to it, but you know how you want to feel, or you know the desired outcome, you're going to do just well. You don't have to fret with, oh my God, am I going to get it wrong? You can only get it right. I'm not saying that this morning to hype you up. I'm saying it because it is the truth. Right or wrong is dependent upon you at this moment in your life. I'm not talking about speeding and right and wrong or shoplifting, right and wrong. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking when I say you can only get it right, means you can only be successful. Because that is the only way to be. You will either successfully complain and remain, or you will successfully see the best outcome and achieve it. The choice. Or as they say in the Matrix, the architect says, oh, the problem is choice. The problem is not choice. The solution is choice. Oh! So that should tell you that problem and solution are one and the same. They're just on different sides of the pendulum. Oh, well, you either choose your freedom or you choose your captivity, but either way, you choose. That choice today, my beautiful friends, is yours. You see how much power you have? And you waiting for somebody else to come along and tell you that you've got power. Nah, you just need to recognize that you've got the power. Let me get the chime, or else we gonna be here all morning, and I'm not gonna get a nap before I go to work. And as you hear this chime this morning, you better know that your problem has the seed of the solution in it. That's what your problem is. Your problem is not here to beat you. So start looking at things a little differently with that mental attitude. The problem has the seed of every solution inside of it. Countdown initiated. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you all for being here, and I look forward to seeing you again on the morrow. That's right, Tuesday at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if today's message did anything for you today, remember to share it with someone. Click the share button, like, subscribe, whatever it is that we do in these YouTube streets. And share this message with people. Indeed. All right, y'all. Oh, hey, Queen Mo. I see you in these YouTube streets. It is so good to see you, my love. It is. Thank you for being here. Yeah. All right, y'all. Fanbase, you know we always spend a couple minutes together. Hold tight, I'm coming. So, peace out.